This week's episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Found Penny Studio. Found Penny Studio is exclusively fulfilling our Patreon Tier 3 merchandise perk by doing what they do best, creating to celebrate everyday moments like your favorite TV series. Check out Found Penny Studio's creations at foundpennystudio.com and find Couch Potatoes Unite on Patreon at www.patreon.com/couchpotatoesunite.
You say you want to watch a drama. You say you want to watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama. Or you can watch it with your daddy. You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler. So you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night. Couch Potatoes Unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because there is no you or me or them. There's just us. That is a quote. Name the character who says it, extra credit for identifying the episode in which it is said. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, ! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays. And as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panels and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Amazon Music, basically wherever you get your podcasts to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Stranger Things, iZombie, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Charmed, Riverdale, and the Arrowverse or CWverse on the CW. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Altered Carbon, Doctor Who, Schitt's Creek, Westworld, Fuller House, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Will and Grace, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The 100, The Crown, Supernatural, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the Outlander panel will get caught up on Season 5, and the Breaking Better series panel will cover the first 2 seasons of Better Call Saul. We'll be launching new panels covering The Orville, Big Little Lies, The Good Doctor, Call the Midwife, The Animaniacs, Killing Eve, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, American Gods, Grey's Anatomy, and Cobra Kai. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends. We'll cry Bazinga for Big Bang Theory. We'll dive deep into the fantasy world of the magicians. We'll navigate the witty political satire of Parks and Recreation. And will become psychos for psych. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, and game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, including in these semi-quarantine times. Hopefully not much longer. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Plus, new in 2021, you can subscribe to us via Patreon. In an effort to get fancier, to upgrade some of our stuff, to build capacity, Couch Potatoes Unite is on Patreon to provide the opportunity to subscribe for perks, including member-exclusive email and Discord access, bonus content, TV-themed merch, and the ability to join CPU for occasional watch parties, and in so doing, possibly to place priority requests for shows that we cover. If any of this sounds like fun to you, head on over to Patreon or download the app and search for our name, Couch Potatoes Unite. Don't forget the ! In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of the outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Just remember, this is us. Yep, that's the joke. I'm telling it again because it's a drama and I'm running out of jokes to tell about this dramatic series. Okay, today we're around the water cooler and continuing a catching up series recently launched or at least launched a few months ago, here at the CPU Water Cooler, in which we discuss a hit multi-season romantic family drama that airs on NBC. The show is This Is Us, and this is the fourth of a four-part series in which CPU catches up on this show. In this episode, part 4 of the miniseries, we're discussing Season 4, which aired on NBC from September 24th, 2019 to March 24th, 2020, with a total of 18 episodes. From here on out, we'll cover This Is Us as part of our regular Water Cooler series at the end of each aired season, including the soon-to-be-discussed Season 5. To remind the listener, created by Dan Fogelman, the series follows the lives and families of two parents and their 3 children in several different time frames. The show's ensemble cast features Milo Ventimiglia, Mandy Moore, Sterling K. Brown, Chrissy Metz, Justin Hartley, Susan Kelechi Watson, Chris Sullivan, John Huertas, Eris Baker, Faith Herman, Lyric Ross, Asante Black, and Griffin Dunn in Season 4. The series follows the lives of siblings Kevin, played by Hartley, Kate, played by Metz, and Randall, played by Brown, known as the Big Three, and their parents Jack, played by Ventimiglia, and Rebecca Pearson, played by Moore. It takes place mainly in the present and uses flashbacks to show the family's past. Kevin and Kate are the 2 surviving members from a triplet pregnancy born 6 weeks premature on Jack's 36th birthday in 1980. Their brother, to be named Kyle, is stillborn. Believing they were meant to have 3 children, Jack and Rebecca, who are white, decide to adopt Randall, an African-American child born the same day and brought to the same hospital after his biological father, William Hill, abandoned him at a fire station. Randall becomes a successful finance professional, although he takes on a career as a politician in this season, and marries college classmate Beth, played by Watson. Kevin becomes a successful actor while struggling to be taken seriously, and after lacking direction much of her life, Kate meets Toby, played by Sullivan, in a weight loss support group. Most episodes feature a storyline taking place in the present, contemporaneous to the time of airing, and a storyline taking place at a set time in the past, but some episodes are set in one time period or use multiple flashback time periods. Flashbacks often focus on Jack and Rebecca circa 1980, both before and after their baby's birth, or on the family, when the Big Three are children or adolescents and played by 2 sets of younger actors. These scenes usually take place in Pittsburgh, where the Big Three and their parents are born and raised. As adults, Kate lives in Los Angeles, Randall and his family are in New Jersey but relocate to Philadelphia this season, and Kevin relocates from Los Angeles to New York City and back again. Various other time periods and locations have also served as settings, and some episodes have focused on the earlier experiences of other characters, including Randall's family members. Beginning in the second season, the show also uses flash forwards to show a later time period when Randall's daughter Tess is an adult and an elderly Rebecca is on her deathbed. This Is Us was popularly requested for discussion and beloved by some of our resident couch potatoes, all of whom appear on this panel. In fact, panelists Kristen L., Spencer, Emily, Eddie, Kristen T., and Jared return to their respective seats around the water cooler today to resume talk of this intricate family drama with the kind of enthusiasm a cheer of Big Three can infuse into the proceedings. As always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have watched all episodes of this series through Season 4 at least, and may discuss sensitive plot points. So for those of you who have not watched This Is Us and plan to do so at some point, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel. How are you?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Are you ready to talk about our final season in the catching up prior to us going on with all that is current?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, very ready.
All right. Well, of course, as we've been doing this whole time catching up, since we've been doing it season by season, what I'm going to do is ask our panelists yet again to rate their interest in the 4th season along the standard CPU character question that changes with each show we do. I have tweaked the character question a little bit. I feel like season 3 into season 4, the characters didn't change a ton, which is probably the first time and maybe the last time that's true, but they did change a little bit, and so to that end, you're going to rate your interest along this newish version of the character question, which goes like this. Would you say you love this show? It's got the big 3 things you love about your TV dramas: heart, soul, and a heaping dose of family dysfunction. Still, you wouldn't have it any other way. You love all of the characters very much and hope that whatever might have happened in the past, their presence and future characters are happy, like Jack Pearson? Do you care about this show deeply? It's messy and complicated, but you're willing to navigate perceived pitfalls in the premise because it is one of the most well-intentioned television dramas that you have watched in recent years. Plus, it occasionally features the singing of Mandy Moore, like Rebecca Pearson. What you enjoy most about the show is its ability to seamlessly weave through time periods, highlighting different eras of the Pearson family as seemingly disconnected moments, like young Kevin, Kate, and Randall Pearson. Do you enjoy the show well enough? You might even actually be addicted to it when all is said and done. You see it as both healthy and cathartic when it actually acknowledges that even the most seemingly perfect existence or sense of happiness can be negatively influenced by unseen forces, such as genetic predispositions or strings of bad luck circumstances, while also giving hope that you can evolve or return from those circumstances, like Kevin Pearson. Did you start watching in season 2, and even though you felt at a disadvantage coming from behind, and in the wake of what is considered to be a stellar first season, you've grown to love this family as much as anyone who has watched it from the beginning, like Miguel Rivas? Do you believe that the show is quite flawed in some aspects, but in others it excels? For example, you're surprised and gratified by the way it highlights race and privilege within the dynamic of one family, which is something new and fresh for the TV landscape, at least after some years. You're also particularly moved by Randall's quest to fuse his biological history with his evolution as a black individual adopted by a white family, and by how each experience both propels and opposes the other, creating strengths and learning opportunities for the character, like Randall Pearson. There are parts of the series that you really love, such as the comic relief provided by the Toby character, and parts of this show that you really do not like, such as when the show is saddest. Toby struggles with depression, for example. In fact, you wish the series would lose some of the dead weight, at least where it makes the most sense to do so, like Kate Pearson. You don't understand what's going on most of the time, but you still love the family at the show's heart and how it involves the younger generation in the story, present and future. Plus, you appreciate that it acknowledges issues affecting today's young people and how it parallels issues affecting yesterday's young people, like Annie and Tess Pearson. Do you understand what's going on most of the time, but don't understand why the adult characters don't realize how good they have it sometimes, which makes the discussion around privilege all the more timely and equally frustrating? Also, the through line of dad jokes is so lame, though admittedly a comforting guilty pleasure, like Deja Pearson. Do you think that the show is okay, though you wish it had more comedy and less drama? Still, there are parts that keep you coming back, like the sincere love between two people of a certain weight class, which often does not get depicted on television for anything other than laughs, and the struggle and or happy journey to care for a baby with special needs, like Toby Damon. Did you start watching at the end of season 4 because you were surprised by how the show takes bold risks, such as depicting a teenage father accepting responsibility and caring for his young child, though you also believe that some issues might be overly idealized and not as real as they could be, like Malik Hodges? Are you wary of the show and some of its problematic characters? Oh, sure, some of them have heart, but some of them can almost be dangerous, and while that is true to life of people or humanity, it's also not something you'd readily choose to watch over the other TV offerings available, no matter what kind of ratings or polls the series gets. In fact, you'd like to be able to pursue your own TV watching dreams rather than fall in with the crowd of people who love this show. It's not all that in the end, and you're going to watch what you want to watch, like Beth Pearson, or, and they won't answer this, but it's here for their consideration, you could take or leave this show. You have a special affection for Kevin, who will not give up on anyone, no matter how bad life gets, but for you, life is more than this family, or its future, and while you're prepared to check on them from time to time, you feel no compulsion to keep an appointment to watch this series, like Nicholas or Nikki Pearson. Who would like to start?
Hi, it's Eddie.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi. So I've been pretty consistent looking back, I've been Jack, but I actually have to change. I know. I'm actually Rebecca.
Oh.
I know. I really like the show, and I feel like the more that I watch this, the more I am connected to them. Like, they're almost like a family to me, and I just want to see what's happening, because I feel like I need to help them somehow. It's so weird. The story is just so good. I feel like I'm in the story while I'm watching it. And even when there's things that happen, and like, and we'll talk about it later. Like, there's parts in this season where I wish that we could have had more on it, but I understand why they didn't do more, because then we would have had a 5-hour show, which in my mind I'm okay with. But yeah.
Okay, so you slipped a little bit because you wish there was more development for certain things that they didn't really develop more?
That's so harsh, but like, that's the only thing that I can, like, if I ever say anything negative. But like, I only say Rebecca mostly because, like, as the seasons have gone on, I just fall more and more in love with these characters and how they are. And I think Rebecca, out of any character in the show, has like the deepest love for literally everyone.
Okay. All right. Welcome back, Eddie.
Hi, I'm Kristen L.
Hi, Kristen L.
Hi. I've pretty much been consistently Jack. I'm going to stick with Jack for season 4. Season 4 is one of my top favorite seasons of this show so far. I love all the character development that we've seen, and they're setting up, you know, kind of what the end game is for this series, and you get to see a little glimpse of that in season 4. And yeah, I love where they're going. I think, you know, things are in a really great spot here. I love the introduction of Nikki in this season, that we really get to explore his relationship with Kevin. Yeah, just, I love it. I'm so excited to talk about it.
Actually, the past couple of seasons, you've been Jack and the Young Big Three.
Well, this time I'm Jack, because that was a lot of characters to think about, and I'm going to just choose one.
Wow.
I love the whole thing, so it's, yeah, sticking with Jack this time.
Fair enough. Welcome back, Kristen L.
I will jump in now. So, while I always will continue to be...
What is your name?
Oh, my name is always and forever Jared.
Hi, always and forever, Jared.
Jared, and I'll start singing it in a moment if I don't start talking. Always and forever. No, just kidding.
Oh, you have a lovely voice.
Thank you. I try. I do, although I am a faithful family member, or a faithful family member that will defend to the end and to death, you know, the things that I back. I do also at the same time find it important to consider what some of these other parts and pieces might be, how they might be important to me. So with that being said, with what Kristen L., what she was just saying, so it resonates with me in that, or was it Eddie that just said he was also Rebecca?
Eddie said he was Rebecca.
It's dad brain. So anyway, so what I would say is, as I consider what Eddie said, I am the kind of person that is able to see that there are things within the story that could be better, could be different, I could help with, or whatever. I would say what I do is I stick with Jack. I'm still Jack, but definitely Rebecca has some redeeming qualities that are super important to me. But the show is called This Is Us. And as we think about the term This Is Us, that means they will be what they will be. They will be imperfect, but you will still love them, and you will still want to see them, and you will still want to be part of them. So that's me.
So you're adding Rebecca to your always and forever Jack?
Jack with the openness and the ability to be Rebecca when necessary.
All right, fair enough. Welcome back, Jared.
I'm Emily.
Hi, Emily.
And I am sticking with my last time assessment of the big 3 and Jack thrown in there.
The young big 3, right?
Yes, sorry, the young big 3 and Jack. I think last time I said that I wasn't not Jack, but this time I really am Jack.
Okay.
And the big 3, the young big 3. I love this show so much. It's so good. My parents started watching it, like, when it first started airing, and they, like, kind of gave up on it, and I'm just like, you have to get back to it. It's so good, and I really still just love so much how they've woven all of these different timelines together, and how, particularly in season 4, we start to see some of these little bits and pieces, like, really falling together and creating the big picture, and I love it.
All right, welcome back, Emily.
Thanks.
So I am Kristen T.
Hi, Kristen T.
Hi. And I'm going to start off with Jack as well. Just like Jack, I deeply care about these characters. As somebody else mentioned, I feel like they're a family I know. And I spend a lot of time thinking about them, wondering what will happen with them, bringing up discussions about them as if I would somebody I know and care about. And I would defend the show to the end if anybody said it wasn't worth watching. So I'd say in that camp, I'm definitely Jack. But I also want to add in a little bit of the end of the Randall description that you put in. So the beginning part of Randall doesn't really describe where I am. But at the end, the section about, I am particularly moved by Randall's quest to find out who he is as a Black individual adopted into a white family. His quest to find out about his family. That's the storyline that drew me into the show at the very beginning. And I really love the journey that this show has that character and actor on, and it's really intriguing to me. So I'd say I'm like 90% Jack with like a little 10% of that part of Randall's in the end.
Fair enough. Last time you actually had Jack, the young big three, and the slight hint of the beginning of the Rebecca description.
Just a sprinkling of the Rebecca description.
Yeah,
absolutely.
sprinkling. Yeah. Okay. So you're changing it to Jack and Randall Part B.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Welcome back, Kristen T.
All right, I think that just leaves me. I will add a disclaimer. Well, aside the moderator, of course, the most important person on the panel.
Oh, well, thank you.
I am Spencer, and
Hi, Spencer.
The disclaimer is that Kristen T is my wife, and we watched this show together. We're intrigued from the beginning and look forward to seeing it pretty much live every week with the occasional watch later because of scheduling, etc. I am definitely still firmly a Jack and a mixture of the young big three. This show there's very little TV that isn't predictable, that can surprise me consistently, and actually finds the feelings inside me that are hard to come across. That's what the show does, and that's why I'm those characters.
All right. So you are removing, last time you had a sprinkling of Kevin in yours.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that still.
Okay, so you're just adding. Now you're just becoming a character palooza like your good friend Kristen
I was
Allen.
trying to simplify, but yes, there is still that little sprinkling of Kevin.
All right. Fair enough. Welcome back, Spencer. And of course, my name is Kylie. As I've already mentioned, I both participate in and moderate the This Is Us panel, as is frequently the case. Last time, I was Jack. This time, I'm still Jack. Why change, really? I mean, there's no reason for that. And Jack, it's got all the things I love about my TV dramas. It's got heart, it's got soul, it's got family dysfunction. And at this point, now that I'm 4 seasons in and committed for the long haul, I also deeply care about these characters and want to know what's happening with them, and I'm following all of the different twists and turns and forks in the road that they often find themselves faced with, and at this point want to see where it all leads, because they're telling it in a non-linear way and they're doing it very deliberately, and it's just intriguing the way they've chosen to tell this story. And at this point I want to know what the end point is and how we get there, and I'm invested. I'm invested in only the way Jack would be in his own family. So welcome back, This Is Us panel, for our final round of catching up before we convert to a complete water cooler panel. We're talking about season 4 this time. This is, of course, the season that ended just about the time this little thing called COVID-19 entered our lives. #womp womp. And so in this particular season, a lot of things happen, and I'm going to summarize it with a talking point that I wrote just because I think it actually has a lot of different things summarized in it that are useful. So we have Kate and Toby are caring for baby Jack, who we find out is mostly blind. We have Rebecca Randall discovering for Rebecca, and then the ensuing aftermath, that she has cognitive memory impairment, forecasting a likely bout with Alzheimer's or dementia, although Alzheimer's seems to be where they're betting, at least as of season 4. No spoilers, #no spoilers. Randall's dealing with his politics, but also as part of the politics, he gets robbed, and this triggers a number of different traumatic responses. He kind of hits the fan with his anxiety piece. Not to mention the fact that Kevin is caring for Uncle Nicky. He's getting him after Uncle Nicky throws a chair into the home, a veteran's home window where they're holding AA meetings and is facing criminal charges, Kevin takes responsibility for Uncle Nicky, and in so doing, kind of grows along the process and starts to shift his focus, especially when they discover Rebecca's trouble, to caring for his mom, which causes friction between Ultimate Mother's son, Randall, and Kevin. And then there's this whole thing with Jennifer Morrison, Emma Swan from Once Upon a Time. We're going to have to talk about her. And Deja is dating this kid named Malik, who is 15 with a baby daughter, but he's caring for the baby daughter along with the help of his parents, one of whom is played by Omar Epps, by the way. And then young Kate is dating this morose emo guy named Mark, who nobody likes that guy, I hope. And then we also find out how Kevin and Sophie first got married. And then we also get some more information about what happens in the future, sprinkled throughout the season, but primarily in the final episode of the season. So there's a lot that percolates in this season. As Emily said earlier, lots of different pieces that have been introduced all 3 seasons long are starting to fall in, like Chris and Elle's favorite word, domino type fashion. So tell me, This Is Us panel, what did you love? What didn't you like about This Is Us season 4?
I think right now,
one at a time.
I'm gonna go first because I'm gonna talk about the season premiere. I feel like this was one of the strongest season premieres they've had since the season 1 original pilot premiere. It was called Strangers, and I love that we got introduced to the new characters this season and not knowing who they were until the last few moments of the opener. So we got to meet Jennifer Morrison's character Cassidy, who has a relationship with Kevin and Nikki. We got to meet adult baby Jack, which was a really fun little twist. And then the third one, was that Malik, I think, or his dad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think so.
So it was just really cool to meet these new characters in this way and having one be from the future, a future version of baby Jack.
I'll add a little caveat to that. For the first 35 to 40 minutes, social media was ablaze with This Is Us has jumped the shark, they don't know what they're doing, they've lost it, and then the last 15 or so minutes, that flipped completely on its head. Oh my God, they're all geniuses in the writing room, yada, yada, yada. And, we were sitting there watching it, liking what we were seeing, but not understanding what we were seeing, and then they did what they do. They put just a beautiful twist that explained it all, and they managed to silence hundreds of thousands of Twitter accounts in moments. It was beautiful to watch playing out live.
Which episode? I missed something.
We know by this point we have to trust the process with the writers. They always give us a great payoff.
Yeah, I remember reading something afterwards about the decision in the writer's room to introduce these characters in this way, and it was kind of a throwback to when we first met the Pearsons, and we're seeing all these little snippets and flashes of people at different ages, and we're wondering, how do these people work together? And it wasn't until the very final moments of the premiere of the entire show that we realized how the big 3 adults fit with Jack and Rebecca, and that reveal, and that was what the writers intended. And although I would share the frustration at the beginning of not understanding what was going on, I think that was a very cool throwback.
I remember watching it and thinking, okay, now are they totally shifting gears, and now are we going to focus on this new family, and how is this all going to work out together? I remember just being so confused, and like Spencer said, not hating it, but just kind of what's going on. And then, that last 15 minutes, just mind blown, and it was so exciting.
So many of the shows that I've liked in the past, they've jumped years into the future. And that's what I really thought the writers were going to do at the beginning of the season. And one of them is Desperate Housewives has done it. Many shows have done it where they've just gone 15, 20 years later, the next season, and there's no meat to do that. And I was so mad. I was almost one of those Twitter people. I was so mad. I was the show is so good. Why are you ruining what you have? And I honestly think they did it that way so that we would react that way. And just the end of this episode, it laid the season out so well. And I'm going to agree with Kristen L that this is literally one of the best seasons. I would say, even though some of us are even farther than this season, I think it's even better than some of the future shows.
Well, I may have been sleeping, but you guys were discussing about the episode where the father, the doctor father, with the daughter and the horse running around the outside. Is that what you guys are talking about? And then the older children. Is that which episode were you talking about, Spencer?
We're talking about the season premiere. Is the doctor and his daughter in the season premiere as well?
It's all the same episode, I thought.
I'm trying to recall whether they were in the first episode or not, although they were very integral in Madison's decision to tell Kevin that she was pregnant.
Which I think was the finale.
Yeah.
I may be getting I thought it was the same episode, but it doesn't matter. But what I would say is that I throughout all of that, I was hoping, my hope was that whatever they decided to do with this, that they didn't leave it unclear for a long time. And while I was happy, obviously, when they brought it all together at the end, well, they brought it together somewhat at the end, I still continue to have that feeling and that sense that there are not as many loose ends. I feel like maybe they could open things up a little bit more, a little bit faster, but that's probably just my personality not being patient enough to wait. But I feel like I've been very patient. We'll see how it goes, and it will come together, and I'll be fine.
I really loved the introduction of the Jennifer Morrison character and how she tied into everything, because watching that first episode, I was like, okay, she's a pretty big name. Like, what are they going to do with her? Having been a big fan of Once Upon a Time with several other panel members here, I was very interested to see where they were going to take her storyline, and I was really happy with where they took it, particularly with that kind of foil that she played to Kevin, and then helping him and Nikki. And I love that Kevin and Nikki have such a great relationship, and yeah, it's so good.
I just wanted to mention that Jennifer Morrison's soon-to-be ex-husband is also Nick Weschler, who was on Revenge. He played Amanda / what the hell is her name now? Emily. Amanda / Emily's guy.
Really trying. You're so trying.
I don't remember, because you know how I felt about that show. That was like pure guilty pleasure and nothing stuck. But it's the one she was in love with the whole time. The childhood sweetheart, whose name I can't remember.
Oh my God, I totally know who you're thinking of. I'm a horrible person. Why can I not think of his name?
Exactly. So he's that guy. Not maybe as recognizable as she is, because yes, there are 4 panelists from our 6 large Once Upon a Time panel on this panel. It's probably
Jack, right? Are you talking about Jack?
Is his name Jack on that show?
His name's Jack. I literally just looked it up. I'm not that smart.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Now that's a coinky dink if ever there was one. But yes, that guy. Jack on Revenge is her ex on This Is Us. And I agree with Emily. I thought, oh my gosh, she's such a... because she was also in House. She's such a recognizable face. Like, what are they going to do with her? What is her purpose? And how
I think we've still got a lot of her story to see.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even being caught up in season 5. Like,
yeah, that's not a spoiler. I just feel like she's got a big part still to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited. She's one of the characters that I'm excited to see how they bring it all together. Like, how she fully develops. Because, I mean, even in this season, she just randomly pops up. But, like, when she pops up, like, she's there at the right exact moment. And it's very interesting. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I really thought she was gonna get with Kevin. Like, I really thought that was the direction they were going. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't mad about it, like, at all. I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. I love her. Like, let's do this. And they were both at a really dark spot, like, when they saw each other. So it was almost like they were gonna make them, like, just help each other. And when they didn't get together, it's almost again like, okay, like, that makes sense. I'm okay with this.
I just want to clarify not getting together, because they hooked up.
I mean, not dating. I mean, like,
not a loving relationship that lasted more than one night. You are correct.
And also with her character not being Kevin's baby mama, that was referenced.
Yes. I was shocked by the development that baby mama was, spoiler, Madison.
Yeah. Yep. I felt like they were totally setting Jennifer Morrison up to be her. I was like, oh, that's totally where this is going, and then it was like, nope, just kidding. I was fine with it.
We've met the son before. We've met his twin boy before.
Yeah.
We have.
End of season 3, we met him.
Yep.
We knew he was going to have a baby mama because she was laying in the back when relaxing when he got to the house. So
yeah.
But then in the finale, we meet both because spoiler, they have twins, and we meet both of them. But she's not there in the finale. She's not visible in the finale.
Yet.
Right. There's a few people that aren't visible in that moment, which makes for some interesting
Yes, they're keeping
points.
Nobody has sung. The fat lady is not sung yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody else interested? I've been kind of curious as to around what age she may be. I can kind of figure it out a little bit, but she has a beautiful face, but it's hard. Like, she's had one of those faces that she doesn't look super young, but she doesn't look old enough to be, and then her relationship, and that's other stuff I won't get into, but she's definitely, I think she's definitely older than Kevin.
Who are you talking about, Cassidy or Madison?
Cassidy. Sorry, Cassidy, not Madison. Madison's got the young baby face, definitely looks young. Cassidy doesn't look old, but just it's kind of where she is at in life. She seems older than Kevin.
I think she's just lived a slightly harder life being in the military and the areas in which she's been in, and her alcohol addiction as well. I would place her right around the same age as Kevin.
I would give her maybe slightly older.
Maybe 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, I think she's over 40 because there's almost an implication that he's 39 in this season. He talks about that a lot. I think there's almost that kind of ribbing that comes with, oh, you're just a kid, you don't really know anything, plus her lived experiences. So
the way she treats Nikki, which we won't go any further with, but
you
definitely
can. We're on no specific order really. It's just all interwoven and wibbly wobbly and not so tiny. Well, it's kind of timey wimey. Another reference.
Nikki is one of my favorite introductions.
I think that one of my favorite things about this series is the relationship between Nikki and Kevin. The fact that those two were paired up in so many situations, and how Kevin, in a way, kind of saves Nikki in a way that he wasn't able to save his dad. He wasn't there for his dad in the fire, but he was there for Nikki when he needed somebody. I loved that. And I feel like this is the season where I really began to care about Kevin a lot more.
I so agree with you.
Let me just say that Kevin is like, especially this season, he feels so much like I would want to be. Like, honestly, I love often the way he wants to bring the family together, the way he wants to take care of, to help keep things together. I love that. And of course, I mentioned before that Nikki always reminds me of my Uncle Tom, who looks a lot like my dad. My dad died when I was young, but he looks a lot like my dad. And every time I talk about Uncle Tommy, or I watch the show, I think of Uncle Tommy, who was in the military, who was injured in the military. Just one of those things that I'm like, wow, this is like life. It's amazing. I love what Kevin's trying to do.
I feel like Kevin is starting to reflect some of Jack. He's starting to exhibit that he's his father's son. I really appreciated that.
I just love that we are really seeing more of the true Kevin and seeing that really empathetic side that he has. And that, like Kristen said, we're just really starting to fall in love with him in this season, and we're seeing that he's not just a drunk asshole. He's like actually like a really good person and just wants the best for everybody, and it just keeps going up from here too with him. I love it.
I feel like, and I've said it in other podcasts that we've had, that Kevin hasn't been my favorite, and I think it's because he's had a void. And you can feel that void because the writing is so good. And I think finally in this season, that void was filled, and it was filled with Nikki.
Yes.
And I also feel like with Nikki, he got to finish what he wished he could have done with Jack because he wasn't there that night. So I think that's why he was so hard and pressed to like take care of his uncle because he wasn't going to let another one die because he feels like his dad died because he wasn't there.
Yeah, and it's another close connection to his dad too, is connecting with Nikki and learning what their relationship was like growing up and his story. So that's been really great to see too.
I started to like Kevin. Maybe the distinction is like versus fall in love, because that phrase has been dropped a couple times. Maybe I wasn't falling in love other than in the obvious way because he's Justin Hartley. Yes, I slipped that in there. But in previous seasons, but I felt like starting with season 2, Kevin became a lot more important to me as a character, even despite his alcoholism, because you could see that he was on alcoholism and addiction. You could see that he was on a journey and that he was evolving and that there was a clear trajectory for him, a very messy growth process, but one nevertheless that you could identify in the moment and see as it was, I guess, evolving and growing throughout the last 2 seasons. What I will say is that for the first time in the show, up until this season, I would have told you that Randall is my favorite character every time. This season, Randall made me mad multiple times in ways that made me very frustrated with him, and Kevin actually became my favorite character when he was my least favorite character in season 1. So I think that's a something. That's a very interesting turnabout that the writers have taken us on, where you kind of see Randall, who is in every way the model child. He's smart, he's driven, he's talented, he's got this loving family, but then there's kind of the therapy episode is very, very good and is one of my favorite episodes of the whole season. I think it's very revealing, but just to walk that line that he has, that line of thought that gets him from point A to point B, was very frustrating to me, and how he reacted to Kevin and to Beth and to his kids and to his mom. Randall kind of pissed me off this season more than once.
That's what I love about this show, though, is that they give these characters so much depth. Whereas in so many other TV shows, once you've met the character and you know the character, you know exactly what to expect at all times. With this show, there are surprises, and there are surprises from everyone, and I just adore that.
Isn't that life?
True. What about?
I'll say this while we had a little pause there. I posted or shared Kylie's preview post on Facebook about the This Is Us that's publishing, and my relatives in England, my cousins, who are all about 10 years younger than I am, all chimed in and said how they absolutely adore this show. So it's gaining a global following of adoration.
I believe it. It's really good television. It's some of the best network television that we've seen in a very long time. And in the TV landscape even I think American TV has gone through a pretty sizable renaissance, but I do think that renaissance is a little bit on the wane because there's just so much. There's such a glut of it right now, and everybody's trying to copy things and reproduce things that are successful, and sometimes to the point of saturation where you're like, oh, please just stop this now. Stop it, I say. This Is Us, though, is its own pioneer, if you will. It's picked up a thread of dramatic storytelling that we haven't seen probably since Lost, losing the science fiction and all the questions and all the frustrating, and let's hope that season 6 is not like season 6 of Lost, but I'm just saying it.
The whole thing ends with a polar bear?
It didn't end with a polar bear, Spencer, but that's for a Lost podcast, which we will do sometime in the future, and I will get frustrated. But anyway.
And the whole time!
There's a whole thing. We'll talk about it at some point when we want to get lost. But anyway, This Is Us has that sort of water cooler buzz. Maybe not as large as Lost or a Game of Thrones, but it's certainly got a sizable following and a huge, like when the episode is on of the week, Facebook starts popping, Twitter starts popping, and I'm like, wow, everybody's watching the This Is Us because they truly enjoy it.
I think it fills a really good niche that just isn't on the market right now or on television right now. You've got a lot of those family shows, but they're all comedies. It's Modern Family, well, Modern Family's over, but Blackish and those sort of shows are all comedy based. And then you've got your medical dramas, you've got your cop dramas, you've got your sci-fi stuff, but there's not a lot of this just good drama, feel good, but still the sadness stuff. There's not a lot of it out there.
I would just add to that there's not a lot of that out there. But I would put a plug in for A Million Little Things. It's a little bit darker. Mm-hmm. It may not be as up to par with This Is Us, but I definitely have loved A Million Little Things and been following that quite religiously too. But that's just a side. Let me just ask a kind of an off the cuff strange question in regards to Kevin. What is everybody's sense around, and this may not have any significance or whatever, Kevin is technically a celebrity. He's technically a star, or he is. He can be in a movie with Sylvester Stallone and he's friends with Ron Howard. And just, I get the sense that, at least the way that they portray him, obviously you can tell he has money, but certainly he doesn't come across to me like what you would imagine. He's very kind of down to earth, while at the same time, oh yeah, so-and-so gave me a phone call. And then even the way that he's treated, when you see somebody, they say, oh, I love your show. I don't know, maybe this isn't even important, but I just thought about that. The way that they portray Kevin as compared to somebody who would be that well known in life today. But I don't know if that has any significance at all. But
well,
I think there's an intent behind that to show how important his father's attitude was in life and how he is like Jack, even though he's gone and become an actor and is successful enough to be recognized wherever he goes. He gets the humility. He has the humility that Jack always had.
I just want to point out though that in this season we see two things. A, he's filming a movie and is super buds with M. Night Shyamalan. She's an interesting director to pull onto this show, but nevertheless, M. Night Shyamalan. And second, when he's looking for love and he meets that woman in the coffee shop and then in the same day springs for a concert of her own with John Legend. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
That was flashing the celebrity. So even though he's down to earth like Dad, I don't think he's entirely tethered to the earth, if you know what I'm saying.
I agree with you there, but that was a Jack style grand gesture when you have the money to be able to back it up.
Sure.
But I feel like they had him do that so that he could have a flash of reality going, this really isn't me. Even though he's capable of doing all of that, it really isn't him, because he was raised to be so humble, and that's how he wants to be. I mean, Kevin hasn't said the words, but he wants to be exactly like his father. I mean, exactly like his father.
That whole concert scene really knocked him down a few pegs too. He was feeling so great and so confident, and then she's like, "Oh, actually, I'm married. My husband. I've been texting him."
To you on purpose.
I loved that whole thing. I think it was such a great moment I think that moment really humbled Kevin in a lot of ways and kind of snapped him back into reality of, oh, I am this great and celebrity and rich and attractive and whatever, and I can get whatever I want, literally, but what do I really want? I think that kind of brought him right back.
It was another incredible writing twist too, the way in which they dropped that on you, because for a while they started thinking, well, maybe she's the one,
right?
And then boom, no, it was a hall pass.
Did everybody watch this trying to figure out who the baby mama was?
Yep.
Because I totally was watching this trying to figure out who the baby mama was.
Yep, whole season.
My wife often watches me when I watch these shows, and she literally looks over me as she rolls her eyes. She says, "You are too invested, boy." Seriously, I watch this show or Grey's Anatomy, I sit on the edge of my seat that is my life, and I'm right there, and it's me. And she's like, "It's just a show, Jared." Sorry, honey, I'm invested.
Look, there are people who think it's just a show, and then there are the couch potatoes who unite. But But I also just wanted to add that, yes, starting with the whole bring on John Legend, learn that he's the hall pass, which I think is so great. That was a great scene. And also John Legend, just a lovely man, great singing. I love him. He's a great musical artist if you don't already listen to his music. But in addition, we also get that lovely sort of commentary from Rebecca later on in the season when Kevin is trying to step up a little bit to care for her as they're receiving the diagnosis about her memory impairment. And she explains to him, you do have a purpose, and the purpose is you're fun, you're positive, you bring the light to any situation, and I need that. I've always looked to you for that. And she even parallels it to when he does finally find whomever he is meant to be with, that's what he will provide to that person. And I just thought that was a lovely through line for his character to have it swing not only from the place of we're clearly watching him mirror Jack, but we also find out how he is like and mirrors his mother.
One of the things that's so good about all this and the way that they handle it is I think they display very well the importance of seeing everybody's perspective, and then realizing even if like you're in a place where you have a problem, how would I say this? You've got a problem with something that somebody's doing. When you watch the show, it really reveals what happens when you try to be empathetic, when you try to see where they're coming from. The idea that you get to jump around and see how this person's reacting to it, and then that person, and then they bring it together, and they show you that, hey, if you may feel this way, but don't forget about what somebody else is feeling. Don't forget where they're coming from, so that you can best you can be your best self, or you can treat somebody well. Just the idea that when Kate talks to her mother and they work things out, and then eventually, I think as Randall softens, you just start to see that people have their problems and their frustrations and their disagreements, but then when you take time to talk about it and see where somebody else is coming from, it's a very heartwarming to me.
Speaking of Kate, we should probably talk about Kate and Toby and their situation this season as new parents of a young child who, unfortunately, they discover does not respond to visual stimulus, at least not until later, and even then it's not a lot. He can see lights, but not much else. And that creates various issues for them, which some are common to new parents, like the ability, for example, to, stay invested in each other, if you will, but also just in terms of Toby's depression, I think, kind of coming through and him working through the idea. I mean, what he actually tells Kate, which causes a rift for them for a while, is looking at Jack makes me sad. So what did we think about that story?
I loved that reveal.
One at a time.
Go ahead, Emily.
I loved that reveal of we see him getting ready to go to the hospital with his wife who's having a baby, and then we find out at the end that that's Kate and Toby's son. I loved that, timeline weave, that it wasn't right away that we knew that was the case. I also really loved the idea that not only that they brought in somebody that was visually impaired and brought some light to that community, because it's not a community that's talked about on television a whole lot. So I really loved that, number one. But number two, I loved that they brought him in to that he had a visual impairment as Kate and Toby's child. I thought that whole side of it was also just really great writing. We talk about that all the time. It was great writing. It was just a really beautiful thing.
I just want to briefly toss out that the home health aide that Kate brings in to kind of teach them how to work with a visually impaired child was played by Rosalind Chow, better known as Keiko, on Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. Continue. Oh, I'm sorry, I disrupted the flow. Live long and prosper.
jump in with something here. Keeping in line with, Kate, Toby, and Jack's storyline, I love the relationship that Kate develops with their neighbor, who is played by Timothy Omenson. I think I said that right?
Yep.
Who plays, his name is Gregory on the show. And, he's recovering from a stroke. And so he and Kate start going on walks, and they have Jack's first bite of avocado moment. But I love that actor. I love him so much. And I was so excited to see him pop up on This Is Us, because he is recovering from a stroke in real life. Right. It was great to see a role that was really tailor-made for him and what he's going through in his life. But he's such a talented actor. He was on, oh my goodness, he was on Psych. I love Psych. I love him so much on Psych. But then he was also on Gallivant, too. So we can hear his singing.
Oh my God.
Is it clicking now, Kylie?
Yes!
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of his, and so I really hope we get to see more of him as the seasons continue to progress for the show. He's such a joy, and I hope it's not the last we see.
I really thought for a hot second that they were seeding a flirtation between Kate and Gregory, because they had, first of all, ridiculously good chemistry, and second of all, with Toby's struggles, I thought, oh my gosh, they're not going to make Kate, fall for the guy with the recovering from the stroke, are they? Because that would break my heart. But it didn't go that way. He's just very good friends now with both of them, especially since Toby moved the storage thing that was in their driveway. So all is good.
We'll see on that.
Oh no!
That's just a gut feeling that I don't think Toby and Kate make it.
I agree. I hands down agree, Spencer.
Looks
1,000%.
No,
I think they've kind of planted that seed. There was I don't remember what season it was. It definitely wasn't season 5, so I know it's not a spoiler. But
it's the end of season 4.
Is it the end of 4 where they show Toby sleeping in the bed by himself, and they're kind of planting that seed of where's Kate?
Yep.
Did they get
when we have the final flash forward where they all seem to be assembling, and this is in season 4, where they all seem to be assembling, he's not wearing a wedding ring, he shows up without Kate. I think they're showing that for a reason.
Yep, and we haven't seen future Kate, as of the end of season 4.
Nope.
So, we don't know.
They showed that the end of season 1, didn't they? At the end of season 1, didn't they show that part? I thought.
They reveal Rebecca, I believe, at the end of season 3, and then we see it again at the end of season 4.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's a dad brain.
The end of season 4 is where we find out that she's actually laying in the room, correct? And
House.
And Nikki's the one who's literally sitting by her bedside.
By her bedside.
That literally broke my heart. I was so happy that he's still part of the family. That's super exciting.
I think the key reveal of that finale, though, was that they were in the house that Jack had drawn and planned to build on the property where the cabin is, which you then find out because they unearthed this time capsule. There's a whole time capsule. Another one of my favorite episodes of the season, when they find the time capsule with a cassette tape in it, recorded by Jax, basically speaking to them from beyond the grave, which another let's cry for 20 minutes. I know. But the thing he placed in the time capsule, he was drawing at the beginning of that episode, a sketch of this dream kind of house. And I think it's fairly safe to assume, based on how they planted the seed, but maybe we find out differently, that Kevin helps that dream realize into an actual reality, and that's where her potential deathbed is. So highly intriguing end of season story bump right there.
There's actually a lot. I would suggest that anybody that loves this show rewatches those last few minutes and pay attention to every single detail you can hear, see, and observe. There is so much in there that there are so many clues as to where things are going and what's happening and with who, etc., etc. Go back and watch that and pay attention to everything. There is nothing that they do that is unintentional.
There's a very, very good YouTube compilation of the future. The whole thing is the future portion of the show. A very good one. I think it's maybe 10 minutes or something like that, but it shows everything from start to finish that's been shown so far of the future scenes.
If you have a link to that, send it along to the group.
I sure will. I will.
And then what I'm just going to make a mental note of is then, before I sit down to watch season 5, I'm going to rewatch season 4 finale.
I would.
Yep, I would.
I totally would.
I think it's going to be very interesting when we do get to the actual finale of the entire show, how that lands, having seen so many parts and pieces of it before. I've never seen a show that's done that.
But I don't think that's going to be the finale. I really don't. Knowing how these people like write, there's going to be a twist, but I myself am trying like not to figure it out because I want to be super surprised, and I don't think I could if I wanted to figure it out.
You would.
I think this whole like she's passing away and like that's the vibe that we're getting, and the family's coming together for the like one of the last time. I think they're setting us up for something way bigger and way different than what we actually think the finale is going to be.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's too
easy. It's like too easy. Like, oh, like everybody's together. Like, it's just way too easy that now the show ends. Like, it would, yeah, I would be very upset.
I agree with that because I do think they continue to surprise us. But I also think if they surprise us too much, they're going to surprise us into doing a season 7. Because
Why not?
Well, now
I
knowing
hope
that
they don't go too far because I do not want this show to jump the shark. And I think if they try and throw too much as a surprise there, if you think about this show as having bookends at either end, the beginning bookend is Jack and Rebecca, and the end bookend would be the finality of Jack and Rebecca. She goes to join him per se.
I'm really curious to see how the pandemic has overall affected the whole story. I think that they've kept a lot of the original intention, but now going into season 5, again, no spoilers. I'm curious to see how, knowing that they are shortening the season by 2 episodes, how it's all going to affect the bigger picture.
Maybe we'll get 18 episodes next season.
Yeah.
I sure hope so. They owe us 2 now.
We'll probably have like a 2-episode like finale. Like I feel like they're gonna make the finale bigger for some reason. I don't know.
They'll show it all on the same night. I would hope so, because that would be torturous if they did.
No, they'll do what they did this season and give you a month between episodes.
Regardless of how big the show's finale will be, it's gotta be heartwarming. Like, there's no way they're gonna end it on any kind of a negative note. I can't imagine, or I wouldn't hope. It would kind of ruin a lot of it for me. So however they wrap it up, might be amazingly big, but it still would have to be amazingly big from a very kind of a heartwarming, maybe with some realistic parts in there, but not ruining it too much.
That's going to be emotional. We're all going to be a mess.
Oh, yeah.
But
And hopefully we're all together watching it. That would be great.
Oh, we could.
That would be fantastic to have a live finale.
You have to open up the Canadian border first.
I feel kind of weird.
Jared, we can patch you in. The technology is wonderful.
We have to watch it and then do the talking part, because I don't know that we'll be able to miss any of it to talk.
Yeah, watch it, and then immediately afterwards pod about it.
There are 2 styles of watch parties. I'm sure we can accommodate our mutual need to not talk over the finale.
Well, we won't be able to talk. We'll all be I won't be able to talk. I'll be crying so hard. So
I think I cried the most in season 4 and now in season 5, so I don't even want to know what's going to happen in season 6.
So I know that we're talking about the season finale and the series finale, but I have to talk about my favorite scene so far is in this season, and you guys are probably going to be like, what? My favorite scene is when Randall is having an anxiety attack and Kevin comes to help him.
That is a great scene.
Cried so hard. I think that's when you find out that you're like, Kevin's actually been humble his whole entire life. Mm-hmm. He's just been taught by Hollywood and society to push it down.
Yep.
My favorite scene thus far.
And he takes Randall's face in his hands.
I know.
It's Jack did, and like William did, or like Randall did with William, and it's just, it got me.
So much mirroring.
Yes.
I think a lot of my favorite scenes this season revolve around Randall and his family, and we haven't really talked about that much.
No.
One of my favorite lines this season is when Randall talks about Malik dating Deja, and Beth just flat out says, she ain't dating no boy that puts babies in people.
That was Beth. Yeah, Beth said it.
Beth said that. That was by far one of my favorite lines of the season.
I love Beth.
That story was kind of ballsy to include in this season. I mean, we've seen teenage pregnancy and teenage parenthood, if you will, in other series. I don't know that it's ever been this young. I don't know that it's ever been a situation where the father of the child retains the child's custody. And not to mention the fact that it seems very deliberate that they showed Malik as this well-adjusted person who is fully conscious of his parental role, is fully aware of his limitations. He's still flirting with temptation, like possibly getting into drug dealing and such to provide for his daughter, but ultimately makes the right choices because he's got very supportive parents, one of whom, again, is played by Omar Epps, who's no stranger to the small screen. And so it was a very interesting story. And then to parallel it with Deja, who comes from the system, having been part of a young pregnancy situation where mom retained her custody, where a lot of it starts to trigger feelings inside of her where she doesn't know if she can trust him. I mean, I thought it was a very, very rich story. Then you've got sort of Beth and Randall's perspective. The whole scene with Beth versus Malik's mom, I can't think of her name right now, where they were basically up in each other's face.
Yep.
was pretty
Was
amazing.
that the episode where we find out about Beth's pantry wine?
Yes, the pantry wine. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I would always put my money on Beth for the fight with anybody.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. I mean, first of all, she was a whole head taller than Malik's mom. But I didn't want to get to a place where they were,
No, I'm glad it doesn't do that with her, but I would still put my money on her.
By the way, random fact, Malik and I have the same birthday. Just so you know.
Oh.
I love Malik. I love Malik and Deja together because, like you said, Kylie, I love seeing how level-headed he is and how mature he is, particularly given the entire situation. And like you said, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that on television. I think maybe the closest is Secret Life of the American Teenager on ABC Family. Even then, I don't think any of them, like any of the dads, retained parental rights. I just love that whole storyline, how it really affects Deja and Randall's relationship and how they start playing off each other in that situation. And I think Randall this whole season they wrote him really, really well. As somebody that suffers with my own anxiety, seeing him have those panic attacks is like such a real experience, and I loved that they wrote it the way they did, because I feel like so many other shows have tried to write anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and they've just been like not anything real. It's been this big over exaggeration of all the things that generally happen, and so I really loved it.
I would like to revisit the therapy episode. I know I've already mentioned it. First of all, I don't know who played the psychiatrist, but she was brilliant.
She was fantastic.
I love the fact that Randall says, and I know this is what you're going to say, and I know this because I've already read all the things that you're possibly going to tell me, and I already know what this is, and I'm basically just doing this because, but then in kind of a way that, personally, I love the moment when she says, think about why you chose me. I am a woman, a white woman, of a certain age, I presume roughly the age of your mother, like trying to drive basically down, and not to get too Freudian, I think she says at one point, which was really funny, just driving home to the seed of some of his most anxious worry. It was brilliantly played, especially with the him getting bent out of shape about the coffee maker dripping onto the hot plate. Are you gonna fix that? It was just such a brilliantly acted episode or couple of episodes. that I thought was so satisfying after watching his struggle with this whole time.
I thought it was interesting that, I think Spencer pointed this out, that everything in that office seemed designed to unsettle people. That I think
he
that
says
was
that,
the one.
Randall does.
Yeah. The painting was crooked or something, and the painting was off balance, and there was the dripping, and there was... It's interesting. It made me think about it. Like, is that something that psychologists ever do? Or was that... I mean, I'm sure in the show it wasn't done accidentally, but there was attention to detail.
I think you're talking about the scene where she finally admits that she knows who he is. Like she admits that she knows who he is.
Yeah.
By the way, her name's Dr. Lee. That's her name.
Okay.
Just for the record.
Thanks.
So yeah, I think she did that on purpose to him. So that, because I think her goal is to get him to explode, because he needs to explode and get his emotion out. So I think everything was set on purpose.
That episode felt like a play on stage. It was the two of them, one sitting across from the other, very little change in the blocking. He sometimes stood up and got frustrated, but mostly returned to his seat directly across from her. It all played upon the expressions on his face more than anything else. It felt like a play.
I also loved that for a while we never saw her. We just heard her voice. It was that disembodied voice. I really loved that choice. I thought that was interesting, and I don't know. I really liked it. It's
funny that you mention her voice, because she's played by Pamela Adlon, who voices Bobby Hill in King of the Hill.
I just found it.
Excellent trivia piece! I did not know that. Oh, that's...
Now you do.
And I know, now if I see her again, I'm going to think, oh my God, that's Bobby Hill.
Yeah, she's actually done a lot of voice work. Tons of voice work.
During that period of time, I was reading a lot of Twitter, which is not really that helpful. It helps sometimes, but it's not that helpful to read Twitter. But I was reading Twitter, and everybody was trying to decide, how could this psychologist potentially be linked to Randall's past? Maybe she's some, I don't know, long lost relative or something, and she's the one that helps him find his mother or whatever. So that was an interesting thought process for me, and she just turned out to be a psychologist, which is fine.
Yeah, I had no sense that they had any prior connection, I think. And I don't know.
Ironic. Oh.
I was just going to say, I don't know if that would have worked if they did.
Yeah, it would have been weird.
That's surprised us before.
Yeah. Ironically, that actress was also in 2 episodes of Parenthood, the show that we compared this one to the most.
I think she's also in Better Things, right? I'm pretty sure she is.
Maybe. I didn't see that one, but I also wasn't really looking for it.
That's what I know her from.
Hashtag honest Emily.
Always.
I just want to note that Randall and Beth handle the whole situation with Deja and Malik better than I think a lot of us, maybe, or at least me, would handle it. They do quite a good job, the writers do, keeping them calm, and just the way that they deal with it. Like, yeah, lots of shows would have had them kind of going out of control, upset, or lots of drama. But I love that it's not too dramatic. Even with Malik and Deja and their personalities, I love how both of them, they're not over the top dramatic. There's realistic, difficult things that happened in their life, but they're not outwardly, crazily dramatic. I kind of like that. They're both kind of level-headed. They're both pretty smart. Quite smart, actually. It's a beautiful story, that one.
Let's just be real. Randall and Beth are some cool parents. And they would be the kind, not to say that my parents weren't cool, but they would be the kind of parents that, you know, if you were friends with their kids, you'd be like, I want to go over to their house because their parents are cool. They let us do X amount of stuff without letting us do too much stuff, and they never get too mad. And yeah, Randall tells some lame dad jokes from time to time, but it's endearing. And Beth is super cool. I mean, they are cool parents.
It's almost a little bit too good to be true, to be honest. I'm sure that there are parents like that. I'm sure of it. But unless I want to be that kind of a parent for sure, and I think I'll be I'll try to be that good. It's hard when your life is complicated. It's hard to keep yourself grounded enough to be able to be always just putting the, I don't know. That's just my wandering thoughts.
Well, I don't think they're showing them as perfect parents by any means. I think they make mistakes and they get into some fairly significant scraps. There's actually a whole string of scenery devoted this season to Randall and Tess not getting along because Tess is having anxiety over coming out and she starts to have a panic attack. And Randall internalizes that like it's all his fault because he passed on the genetic code of his family and has bestowed upon her this anxiety, which then leads them to be off and to kind of go into a bit of a silent space. And Beth flashes back to, I believe it's William who tells Beth about the Alka-Seltzer trick. We're dropping the Alka-Seltzer and watching the bubbles to calm them down. So, I think that they're very deliberate about Randall and Beth are not the Cosbys. And this is apart from any commentary about Bill Cosby. Just leave that apart. They're not the Cosbys.
That's true.
They are.
There's a good transition from something being dropped in a drink to Bill Cosby there, Kylie.
I'm just saying, when we're talking about, perfect parents who happen to also be African American, the Cosby Show would be the analog, right? Because there had to be an idealization there because of sort of the racial subtext. They had to be perfect in the 80s because not a lot of people responded to a main cast featuring African American characters. In this day and age, though, they don't have to do that. I think they're just naturally cool. They still make mistakes. They make some whoppers over the course of the 4 seasons with their 2 biological children, but also specifically with Deja, who they end up fostering and adopting. And so I think they're very deliberate about showing that they're humans that make human mistakes. So I wouldn't even think about this is a pep talk for you, Jared. Don't compare yourself to them. Yeah, everybody, there's no instruction booklet. Your kids and your family are going to operate on the level you need to operate on, just as Randall and Beth Pearson's and their daughters have to operate on their level.
Well, here's what they do perfectly, and with this show. They very well demonstrate how, as parents, and this is my experience as well as my knowledge of what I know, is that as parents, it's important to allow your children to see you as going through the different struggles, but also that you make an active choice to keep your serious discussions and your serious kind of disagreements separate from the kids, so that they don't have to see you in areas where they might be confused. But the idea that they take their problems into their bedroom or somewhere else so that the kids aren't affected that way. So they do a great job keeping the relationship the way it should be. That's my opinion.
I also just wanted to say there is a natural transition to the Cosby Show because there is no mistake that they cast Felicia Rashad as Beth's mom. That was a very deliberate casting choice.
Best option for Beth's mother.
Oh, absolutely.
You can go back and forth with Beth. Like it'd be like a cage match verbally.
Oh, yeah. This was the season that we started seeing Randall and Beth have marriage issues, correct?
Yes.
I thought that was...
It percolated earlier, but it was the most prominent this season. Yeah.
I thought it was so beautifully done. Like, as beautiful as marital problems could be, I think they did it so well that they didn't show them. They showed them arguing, but they showed them coming together and growing together to bring their marriage back. I thought it was so well done. It kind of goes back to that fact that they don't have to be this idealistic family like the Cosbys had to. They don't have to represent that. And I think that's kind of what this whole show is that so often these family shows are showing like the perfect family, and This Is Us is really getting away from that and saying, no, we all are human, we make mistakes, we do things that affect other people, and this is how we grow from them and learn from them, and it's just Randall
does such a good job around his mother-in-law. Like, to have her as his mother-in-law, he knows how to back it up. If he needs to back it up, you get out of her way. And I love that you can tell he still respects her and loves her, but he knows his boundaries, and I love that.
Yeah, the whole episode with the dance studio, opening the dance studio and the dead whatever rodents or things.
Swallow your pride. Lay down.
I mean, and you know, Beth turning it completely around while Randall is totally supportive. I forget what Mom's name is, but she basically says, no, you know, I always liked you, Randall. I never had a problem with you being good enough for Beth. And I don't remember what the whole speech is, but there's sort of that self-confession that she was just keeping him on his toes, essentially, the whole time. Well, we have really traversed a lot of the different threads of our 4th season here. In fact, in a non-linear fashion, by the way, not dissimilar from how the story is told. Wanted to check in and ask, is there any, before I ask the other, you know, sort of our episode ending questions, is there anything that we haven't covered plot-wise that you want to make sure we cover?
I would say that Rebecca's father is an interesting character.
Yes.
Obviously, we don't like the way he's treating Jack. There's some realism, obviously, to him and what other fathers might be like, and understanding a bit of where he was coming from, but also being a jerk at the same time. It's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that progression and finding out what happens in the end with him. And we're seeing a little bit of that now, but I always like this particular guy. That I like this character. I like him in a lot of shows, but I don't like when a character that I like is playing a part and they're not being nice. Anyway, I'm interested to see how that all progresses and how Jack gets to prove him wrong. But yeah, that's an interesting. Just some of the things he says. You know that if Jack was giving in, he would have had a hard time not slugging him. But at the same time, it's too bad that it ended up like that way, but I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in the future.
The other thing we didn't really talk about was Kate's relationship with Mark.
Oh, yes. Oh, my. Okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Rolling, this train rolling.
That is the one ending that I sort of saw coming. Not how it transpired, but I knew it wasn't going to end well. He seemed off, and you know when you meet a broody guy in the record store that he's bound to have some sort. Come on, have we not watched High Fidelity? We know these things to be true. And Kate, I think for not the first time, but certainly the largest time did I relate to young Kate in such a substantial way, because so wanting to be liked for who she is and not judged for her size, and you know, she has a lot to offer. She's clearly a music lover, which I totally relate to her on that subject. I wished I'd have worked in a record shop. I still want to work in a record shop. I can't sustain my life on a record shop, but I want to. Yeah, that was both. It was bittersweet because you knew where it was going, but at the same time, her family all came in and rallied around her by even just a feeling that they knew something sounded off in her voice when she called, when that asshole dropped her on the side of the road. I'll probably have to bleep that out, but it's what he is, and I feel strongly. And I want to know what his backstory is. I mean, he clearly is alcoholic. Are we having he was drawn to sort of a little bit of an Electra complex there? Like maybe there was a bit of dad that she saw in him for a second?
Could be.
I just think it's because he paid attention to her.
Yeah.
And he was drawn to her. I literally, honestly think that's what it was. And I mean, they literally connected because they were in the record store together. And I can't believe I'm saying this. And I feel like Mark just thought it was a piece. That sounds so dirty to say, but that's the best way I can say it.
I think she was more than a piece.
Guys like Mark, they are naturally drawn to people like Kate. The girls who they're not always looked at. They don't have a lot of relationship experience. They're overlooked sometimes. I think that she's like a pushover and an easy mark.
But also somebody that will worship him and stroke his ego and make him feel better about himself, because he's clearly immersed in a period of his own self-loathing based upon how he reacts when he drinks.
Yeah, he's drawn to her because he knows that she will worship the ground he walks on because he's giving her attention.
There's a real life person I can compare to this guy, but I cannot say it on the podcast.
I have several in my head too.
I've lived through that.
She knows who I'm talking about.
I know a real life Mark. I dated a real life Mark.
Oh.
I really connected with Kate.
Yeah.
Yep, me too.
I know somebody who has adjusted out of being a real life Mark and has found some stability in his life and a loving relationship, but he was definitely Mark for a while. In his 30s.
Yep.
Life would be so much better if I'm pretty sure I know who this person is. That's the best part.
Hopefully they're not listening and pick it up. But whatever.
Oops.
No names, whatever.
No.
It's fine.
But I think that was a really good insight to Kate and where she is. And I mean, while not that I necessarily expected it, it didn't shock me that was kind of some of her background. But I think it was nice that they showed it to kind of lay it out for other people that aren't like us, that maybe haven't experienced a relationship like that, to say, yeah, this is awful. It's not fun.
But it also, now that you're teasing that, and maybe the show is teasing that Kate and Toby somehow fall apart somewhere along the way, I'm starting to wonder if they're going to analogize this earlier thing to that. I'm a little worried.
Not.
Me neither. She says through the gritty teeth emoji.
Kylie, all I can say is keep watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what you tell me, like, all the time. It's gonna happen. Have patience with her.
Well, we can say.
I know. You say it a lot.
One of these things that the shows have an opportunity to do so well is to be able to showcase in different episodes and different seasons, showcase people's backstories. And I'm a little bit of a horse of a different color, a little bit of a glutton for punishment when it comes to defending. I guess I'm defending people's backstories or defending where they come from. I'm a big believer that if they will face the consequences, and often people do face the consequences, and that's really important that they have consequences. But then again, when you start seeing somebody's backstory, this is me, this is probably part of my personality, and you begin to see what's going on in their life, you don't approve, you don't love them for who they become, but you get a chance to say, hey, what would I be like, or how easy would it be for me to be like this person if such and such happened to me? Never an excuse, not defensive of a person. I'm literally just saying the backstories are great and they're important because they allow you to say, hey, now whatever it is I'm going through, I have to get a grip. I have to be able to say my choices matter, and I need to just be aware that you can become like this person if you don't make better choices, if you don't. So that's what I love about hearing the backstories, because it does give some empathy while at the same time saying they're not deserving of any credit for the way that they're acting. But I've known people personally in my own life who have done some bad things that I don't defend as a person, but I feel bad that something happened in their life that caused them to get to this place where now there's a lot of their life that's crumbled, or a lot of things that they're facing this consequence that they deserve or that they don't deserve.
Are you trying to suggest that we should give Mark the benefit of the doubt?
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
I would definitely say I'm not one to jump onto somebody. I'm not one to nail somebody with something until I have a better idea of what brought them to that place.
Do we get more Mark? You can answer this question very simply. Do we get more Mark in season 5?
Mark does appear in season 5.
Hashtag aw geez. Okay.
So what
And
I didn't like Mark from the very first moment he appeared in this show, and I still don't like Mark, and I will never like Mark.
No,
I don't
Spencer has
necessarily
spoken.
like Mark. But I will say without a spoiler that I appreciated how things are going to play out. I appreciate the way Kate handles herself and other things. But anyway, I appreciated being able to at least get a little bit more clarity. But no, I don't like him either.
what I really love about this show, and what I know other shows, even shows that I've talked about on this podcast, have failed to do, I think about 13 Reasons Why. I was on that panel, and I hated how they would establish a character and then go back in and change their backstory. And what I love about this show is that you can tell that their backstory has been written for years, and they knew where it was going to head, but they've just been kind of picking out these little snippets as they go along. And that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons why this show is so brilliant and it's got the following it does, is because it establishes a character and it establishes something and it stands by it. Where so many other shows, like, if the audience doesn't like it, they're like, oh, never mind, we're changing it. Just kidding. And that drives me crazy.
And the consistency is awesome in this show.
Yep.
Kristen T, I think you've been trying to speak for like 5 minutes. Did you want to say something? Okay.
Okay. The moments have passed. It's all good.
And I certainly apologize if I had any part in cutting you off. I may not have realized it. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's the dangers of the Zoom format. Someday.
And all of us, too, have so many similar feelings, too, that a lot of times I'll be thinking about something I want to share or say or bring up, and somebody else does it. And so I just emphatically nod, which the people listening to the podcast can't hear my nodding, but I'm just agreeing with this panel. So
It is a very agreeable panel, all things
Just going
considered.
like this, I wanted to say that.
In fact, I've rarely encountered such an agreeable panel over so many seasons in a row. Usually by this time, I start to get a little bit of splintering. Like, either it's getting worse, and people are like, oh, it's getting worse. But some people are like, but it's still good. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, Kristen and Spencer will attest, or that's the existence of the DCTU series in a grand nutshell. And then there are other TV series where it's like, it goes downhill so fast. 13 Reasons Why was mentioned. So there's that. When I had a mass exodus. And then there are other ones that are like, it stays really good, but people respond to different things. This is the first time, I think, that people have consistently now 4 seasons responded to the same things pretty much agreeably, little variations, but pretty much agreeably, unanimously across all 7 of us. That's crazy.
and great. Also speaks to the quality of this show.
I think you're right.
And we're very opinionated people.
Yes, seemingly we are very... I would say Kristen T is not as opinionated. Maybe about This Is Us. But you're always very polite. So, which isn't to say that everybody else is rude. Okay, I'm digging myself a hole. Let me just
I haven't done enough panels to earn the right to be salty, so...
Okay,
No,
that's
all
probably
Spencer.
fair. Yeah,
I was salty in my first episode.
Spencer's more than made up for any saltiness that could come out of your household. So, fair enough. All right, let's do some wrap-up questions, a couple of them, just so we can transition away. Though feel free if there's any forgotten plot point that we haven't covered, although I feel like we've been very thorough.
One last thing.
Okay.
It's a happy thing to end Kate's story on.
Okay.
So they're talking about having another baby in season 4, and Toby says, hey, the Pearsons have a good track record with adopting. And then soon after, we see a flash forward of baby Jack, now adult Jack, in the hospital with his wife who's just given birth, and a woman that we've seen, no name, rushes in, and Jack's like, no, she's good. Nurse, she can stay. That's my sister.
Yeah.
Who is played by Adelaide Kane, the star of Reign. She played Mary Queen of Scots, and she also played a wicked stepsister on the aforementioned Once Upon a Time.
Shows are coming together on This Is Us, and it's wonderful. I've got Spike, I've got Once Upon a Time, I've got Reign, all the shows. It's great.
All the shows.
Here, what actor, when approached with the proposition to do this show, would say, no, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, like, the fact that they've had M. Night Shyamalan and Ron Howard just, like, on the show, like...
As a
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be fair. M. Night Shyamalan's career, I'm not sure is, like, doing super hot, so he was probably available.
He did a couple of really good movies.
Yes, at first!
You...
At first!
Well...
At first.
I will say The Visit, which was one of his more recent ones, that one was pretty good. That was the one where the kids go to the grandparents' house.
Okay, I haven't watched The Visit. Is it as good as The Sixth Sense?
No.
There you go.
Nothing will be as good as The Sixth Sense. Like,
is it as good as Signs or the one...
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable, yeah.
The Visit is really funny. The Visit is, like, intentionally funny. It's not like The Happening where everything was like, what? This is dumb. The Visit's, like, intentionally funny.
Okay, I don't mean to knock M. Night Shyamalan because I do think he has made some good movies. However, he also inserts himself into his own movies. So I can't help having a little bit of derision for the guy just because it's like, you don't have the right to do that.
You're not Stan Lee.
No, and you're not Alfred Hitchcock, though you try really hard. And he tries too hard. But this is a whole other podcast about M. Night Shyamalan, and I have very strong feelings. Maybe someday we'll do movies. Okay, so of all the relationship dynamics in season 4, what I'd like you to do is pick the one that you responded to the most this season, with or without expounding.
For me, it was Kevin and Nikki.
I would agree with that, Kevin and Nikki.
Same. Kevin and Nikki.
I would agree with Kevin and Nikki.
Fine. I'm gonna go off the path here. While I did love Kevin and Nikki a lot, I actually personally related to Randall and Tessa a lot more. Not because I'm straight. That was not the reason, but because my dad and I both have a lot of anxiety, and it's a very interesting dynamic kind of working through some of that. Some of it we've done together, but having that other person that I know closely that has a lot of anxiety, but not really feeling like I can relate to him as much because our anxiety is so very, very different on so many levels. But that was the relationship I really related to.
I also am putting my vote in for Kevin and Nikki as the relationship I responded to the most. However, I'm going to give an honorable mention to Toby and Baby Jack, because even though it took him for frickin' ever to come around, and he had to process a lot of feelings, and he had to get past that whole avocado business, the thing that he finally did to bring himself around and get past the sadness was show Baby Jack Star Wars. And I just have to, I have all the hearts for that. He had the chess set, the little chess set with the things, and he showed him the figures and did the sound effects of the lightsaber and Darth Vader. And I mean, if you're Gen X, Star Wars is your language. And so I just thought that was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment, and it finally got him. Between that and the flashing lights that he was responding to, it finally got him over the hump in terms of processing the loss of Baby Jack's sight and what that meant to parent him. And so it was a good journey. It was a well paid off journey. I'm glad that he finally came around, because I was going to be very, very sad and, be frustrated with him like Kate, because I thought there was a fair frustration. Although she also did grow with the help of her mom to say, I need to let you have to be able to voice those feelings to me, and I have to be able to hear them without the judgment that I started off with. So, but ultimately Kevin and Nikki, because Griffin Dunne is such an amazing actor. He's an amazing actor all the time, but he's good in this role. He's so good in this role. So loved it. Loved it.
one of my favorite scenes so far in season 5 is with him.
Oh, good. More foreshadowing!
Yep.
Fine.
I relate to
say that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Mine.
I talk more than you.
Nobody needs
Somebody go!
I was just going to say that adult Jack is very easy on the eyes.
Agreed.
That's all I was going to say.
And easy on the ears. He has a lovely singing voice, and that song is beautiful. And my God, the composer for this show is so good. And there was another song that played this season, but now I forgot what it was, of course. And I can't even remember the moment, but it was a song that played somewhere along the line near the end. I won't remember it, but I thought, oh my gosh, it's the perfect song again. The music on this show is chef's kiss. Okay, you agree. So, of course you've all kept watching. That's not even a question we ask, and frankly, maybe Eddie's not as caught up as the rest of you, but we all know this is an inevitability. I don't even have to ask the question. This is also an inevitability, but we can't just drop tradition. Would you recommend This Is Us after season 4?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
1, 2, 3. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to ask you why. I think we've established. I'm just...
we're bordering on 2 hours of singing this show's praises, and we're only talking about one season of it. So.
I know. Usually the agreeable ones are shorter, but geez, there's just effusive praise over here. Okay.
Drive the pessimist crazy.
And there's a lot to unpack every season.
There is a lot to unpack, especially this season. At this time, is there anything that we haven't covered about season 4 of This Is Us? Oh, the silence. Oh, good. Well, I think I agree. Your silence means that we've been very thorough. I think we've covered all of the major points. We've unpacked this massive suitcase of drama. But never you fear, listener, because this show is about to become one of our water cooler series, and we're going to be unpacking season 5 in short enough order. But until that point, what I'd like to do at this time is thank Emily and Kristen T and Kristen L and Jared and Eddie and Spencer for joining me once again to catch up on This Is Us. And frankly, we're pretty much caught up. I mean, now we're caught up to where the podcast would normally be, because we would talk about it when the season ends. So we're caught up. But in case you doubt us, listen to the credits and then we'll tell you more. Couch Potatoes Unite! Was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website, and we're now on Patreon at patreon.com/CouchPotatoesUnite. If you really love us, pledge your support by becoming one of our United Couch Potatoes as we grow our little sofa-populated corner of the world. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, our Patreon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though, of course, we have new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and our Patreon to stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast, Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. Until the next time, all available seasons of This Is Us are available to stream on Hulu. In the meantime, our This Is Us panel will next reconvene very soon, in fact, relatively speaking to this whole thing, to talk season 5 as our now catching up panel converts to our future regular water cooler panel. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned!
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.